Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge post derby. So we have plenty of things to talk about. I don't know. Is Ibanez the biggest Lazio legend ever? I mean, after this great performance in the derby, let's ask to the marathon man, Alasdair McKenzie, who is half alive today. Uh, what do you make about Ibanez? I mean, it makes me laugh a lot because a lot of Rome journalists continue to say Ibanez is a great defender, but for a defender who makes so many big mistakes in big matches, cannot be considered a great defender, right?
He is a great defender. He's a great Lazio defender. I think he's probably my favourite Lazio centre back since Bastos, and that's big praise. Um, I think it's just crazy that they keep picking him. I mean, two derbies in a row, he's made game-changing mistakes. So yeah, long may it continue. For some reason, they keep putting faith in him to behave himself, and that was a real gift yesterday for Lazio, because it's not just a straight red; it's picking up two yellows in 30 minutes, but the second one being so stupid, like flying into that challenge off his feet. And then all the Roma players complaining about it. I was looking back at the replays. I honestly don't know what are they saying to the
Yeah.
referee. What can you say to try and defend that? I mean, it was so stupid. But look, I mean, I think that even before then, Lazio had started pretty brightly. Uh, they had control of that game from start to finish. Roma were really poor, really disappointing. So pretty happy with that. I mean, it still seems like we can only win games 1-0, but there is definitely satisfaction in beating Mourinho 1-0.
Well, Alistair, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the last two derbies, Roma had just two shots on target, which is embarrassing, right?
Is that right?
Well, in the
Well,
first derby, they didn't have any chance. They didn't shot on target. In the second one, they had two. So,
well, Sarri's got an incredible record in this game. I mean, that's the first derby double since 2011-12, which, by the way, was my first year living in Rome. So I was at both those games. You're welcome. Um, and
don't get
then
me started.
he's won three out of four derbies for a
Yep.
coach against Mourinho, who's supposed to be this big game manager. It's a hell of a record for Sarri. He deserves real credit for his team's performances in the derby, but also actually just generally in the big games. You know, we've seen this throughout the season, and this is just another example. And let's not forget the overall importance of this result beyond the City rivalry stuff of not only extending the gap over Roma, but having the head-to-head over them locked in. So if we finish level in points, Lazio go ahead of them in the table. That's secure now.
Well, I think this derby got more important after Saturday night, right? After Milan losing, it wasn't simply. I know a lot of Roma fans are saying, "Ah, you're celebrating a derby. You're not thinking about the big picture." No, I'm thinking about the big picture because Lazio's second now, and it's not only second, 2 points ahead of Inter, 4 points ahead of Milan, 7 points ahead of Roma. Yes, it's March, but Alistair, when was last time Lazio was at end of March second with so many points ahead of the fifth position? That is the first out of the Champions League. I know this week was funny because I read some articles saying, be careful because this year the fourth spot could not get you the Champions League position if Roma wins that, Napoli wins, no, Napoli, no, Juventus win this one, Milan wins it. Yeah, it's pretty much impossible, guys. So, yeah, of course it could happen, but, you know, it's unbelievable, Alistair. Last time I think is when we had the COVID the stop, right? When Lazio was second at March.
Yeah,
March.
yeah, 1 point off top then, so slightly different. But yeah, I mean it is just it constantly amazes me that this Lazio team has been so inconsistent, and since the turn of the year, dropped points against Lecce, Empoli, Fiorentina, Verona, Atalanta, Juve. Bologna. Dropped points in all those games since January, and a lot of those teams being teams you'd think we should beat, and still we're second. How is that even possible? I mean, I remember saying after the Empoli game, throwing away the 2-0 lead at the end to draw 2-2, that the top four is probably gone. I mean, how can you drop this many points in a season and hope to finish in the top four? And the thing is, that would be true in any normal season, but this is not a normal season. It is absolutely incredible how inconsistent everyone has been, apart from Napoli. And it blows my mind even more that this is the year that suddenly Italian teams start performing well in Europe. They're all crap in Serie A, and then they got to get to the quarterfinals in Europa and Champions League. So this season keeps giving us a second chance all the time, and now seems like we're taking it because
Before
obviously no European distractions either now.
before going and talk deeply about the derby, in the last 5 games, Lazio got 7 points against Inter. We gained 7 points against Inter and Roma. So, and in these 5 games, we played the derby and we played against Napoli. So this is the incredible thing, right? We got 6 points in the last 5 from Milan. And let's not mention Atalanta that finally won but lost 3 out of 4. So this is the thing, Alistair. We were complaining, rightly so, because we lost points against Bologna and so on. But we are +7 against Inter in the last 5. I mean, Lazio is struggling, but the others are doing even worse. And definitely, this is an incredible sign of improvement compared to the past. And you mentioned we only win 1-0, but clean sheets isn't. I mean, last time we closed to Derby without conceding a goal, I don't remember this. This is simply incredible, right?
Yeah, 16 clean sheets now this season. I mean, in what, 27 games? That is
Yeah.
remarkable. I mean, I still have my concerns about the attack not being clinical enough, and the fact that, in a game like that against 10 men against a really poor Roma side, it's still nerve wracking at the end when they're throwing balls in the box and stuff. So I would like the attack to be firing a bit. That said, Zaccagni ended his goal drought since January with a really, really good goal. Great performance from him as well, actually. I thought Felipe Anderson played pretty well. And now we've got the international break, so Chiro's going to have a bit of time to get back. But the defense, the defense is what is keeping us in this race. It really is. And Provedel yesterday playing through a fever, and making a really good save at one point. Alessio Romagnoli against his former employers, putting in a great performance. And what spirit of the team, by the way. I think they really. I mean, we can maybe talk about the fisticuffs and the off-pitch drama with all the fights, but I think the team approached that in a really good way, really good mentality. It seemed like they were there ready to fight for that result. I mean, literally as well. But they seem to approach it with a good derby mentality, I think.
Yeah, Alistair. I mean, I don't know if you thought the same, but when Ibanez got the red card, I said, no way this match finished without another red card for a Lazio player. And so Lazio had to be very careful because
And I didn't.
Mancini and other players tried to provoke Lazio players. And it was a good sign to see. Yes, Marozic got the red card at the end when the match was over, which is annoying, but at least the match was finished. But fighting without getting a red card, that's a very good sign. And I mean, with Mourinho, you know that this type of match is going to happen, right? It was a fight. It wasn't a very nice football match. But I thought Lazio took it the right way, right? Focused, fighting, but without exceeding.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of controlled aggression, I guess. I mean, uh, you're right. It is annoying that Maricic has gone and got a red card at the end, but you're also right that it's better then than during the match. I mean, it was right on the boiling point all the way through. that match. I think the referee actually did a pretty good job of kind of trying to keep the lid on that and stopping it from boiling over. I think if Mourinho had been on the sidelines, that may not have happened because Mourinho likes to encourage that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, ultra competitive. I think it's the kind of derby that if you don't support either team, it would have been pretty dreadful to watch. It wasn't exactly a thrill
No,
match. So many fouls, people rolling around, fights breaking out, and not a lot of football being played. But when,
I
when the ball was rolling, Lazio did do what they needed to do. They were controlling possession. They were controlling possession, but also threatening in the final third in a way that they've not that much recently. They were creating openings, getting Zaccagni on the ball as much as possible. Alberto was kind of dictating things quite nicely from midfield. And it wasn't a game of lots of big chances, but they did enough to win the game. And the goal that Zaccagni scored was fantastic. I mean, brilliantly finished.
Yeah, absolutely. Alistair, two things. The first one, I thought with Chiro, this match would have been easier, probably 3-0 for Lazio. And the other thing is, Milinkovic, again, not a great performance. Credits because he get the second yellow card to Ibanez. But apart from that, he didn't do pretty much nothing. And when you play a team like Roma that put the bus in front of the goal, you need something more from Milinkovic Savic.
Yeah, and we've kind of been waiting for him to snap out of this form, this bad form he's had since the turn of the year. And I was kind of hoping that it would take a big game because we know he likes to
Yeah.
perform in the big games generally, and he has performed brilliantly in derbies in the past. So I was thinking in the back of my mind, maybe this is it. Maybe he can dominate again now that it's a derby game. Maybe he'll really, take on the challenge of this physicality against Roma's midfield. I don't think he was terrible, but again, it comes back to the same thing I was saying last week, where is we're not really talking about him being terrible more than just being like everyone else. He's kind
Yeah.
of playing in an average 6 out of 10 style way, where you expect him to be the standout player more often. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's one slight negative, but I think there's plenty more positives than negatives to take from this game, and the international break coming now might be a good thing as well because can get Chiro back to fitness. Can maybe Sergey can go off and you know refocus his mind or whatever, recalibrate slightly if he goes away with Serbia. I'm not sure if he is. I assume he is.
Uh,
Um,
Chiro was on the bench yesterday. Obviously, he wasn't fit to play, but the doctor at the end of the match said that he have solved this problem, and so will take the next 2 weeks to be in shape and be able to play against Monza the next match, which is important to have Chiro back because I think the Felipe Anderson plan is not working anymore. Yesterday he created some chances, but we need probably Felipe Anderson back on the wing because Pedro is struggling a little bit to win one against one, like Zaccagni did on the other half. And we need someone who's good enough to finalize all the chances we create. Because to be honest, yesterday we shot on target more than we usually do. It was often from outside the box, but we had some good chances. We need maybe someone who feel the area and be ready for the tapin, etc. Right?
yeah, I think that the team just plays differently whether he's there or not because with Anderson, I think some of the build up play can actually be better sometimes with Anderson on the pitch than with Chiro because he's very good at knitting these moves together. Um, but what Chiro gives you that Anderson doesn't is he gives you an option to run in behind, which Anderson very rarely does. And how often have we seen, an Alberto or a Sergei pass over the top or in behind the defense for Ciro to run after? And you never really see Lazio playing that kind of more direct style when Anderson's on the pitch, because he's not really making those runs as often. And also just someone to fill the box, because Ciro's always there. There's no one better than Ciro really at finding scoring opportunities. He's always finding chances, and that's because he's putting himself in dangerous areas all the time. And there were moments yesterday when Zaccagni would have the ball out wide, for example, and he'd kind of look up and there would be a wall of about 7 red shirts and there's no blue shirt in the box. And I guess that's the problem when you're playing more of a false nine, is someone who's going to come and interact more with the midfields. And that's where you really want Sergei to be pushing up, as he has in the past, to be that body in the box who's going to almost like push up to be the auxiliary striker. So yeah, I think the team's plays differently between the two of them, but the team is undoubtedly more used to the style with Ciro, and I think Ciro gives you both. He's not got the technique, the first touch, all that stuff that Anderson's got, but he does give you that deadly killer instinct that Anderson just hasn't really shown.
Let's talk a little bit about Zaccagni, because yesterday Zalewski pretty much wasn't able to stop him. I mean, or it was a foul or Zaccagni was going away, and we saw it even in the goal. Zalewski missed completely the tackle, and Zaccagni scored. This season, he's at 9 goals so far. So he scored the same amount of goal of Ciro Immobile. He's the first Italian in the goal score sheet and hasn't been called by Roberto Mancini. I'm happy personally, because so he gets 2 weeks to relax. But this is simply unbelievable. I mean, Mancini said.
So you're not happy?
I'm absolutely happy. I mean, if I could have no Lazio player called for the national team, I'm the happiest man alive.
It's not very patriotic of you, Vittorio.
He can call him in the World Cup, but in this stage, I'm not. I know. I'm happy without them.
Italy at the World Cup. I think you're being a bit ambitious there.
I'll take that. I deserve it. But I mean, how can you not call Zaccagni?
It surprised me as well. Yeah, I mean, clearly Mancini has been looking around for different options. He's not against the wild card options in the past, like when he picked Wilfried Gnonto when he was still at Zurich, for example. And now he's got this South American guy in, and yeah, it is an odd one. I think I saw some debate about this online where people are saying, yeah, but Berardi's in better form. It's like, well, who cares? You can pick like 8 forwards in your squad. Plus, Berardi plays on the right wing and Zaccagni plays on the left wing.
Yeah.
Who's like, oh, Chiesa. Yeah, but Chiesa plays on the right wing. Who's on your left wing? I mean,
and he's injured.
Exactly. In terms of a left winger cutting in on the right foot, and by the way, Lazio's 4-3-3 is the same way that Italy plays. So it's no longer this thing of under Inzaghi where it's like, okay, well, you're playing 2 different systems. Can Lazzari, change to a back 4? All this kind of discussions we used to have. It's actually mirroring more or less the way that Italy are going to play, because they always have under Mancini. So yeah, it's an odd one. I think Casale was in for a shout as well, because he's been playing really well and he's been left out. At least Romagnoli was called up, but there is no better all-Italian partnership than Casale and Romagnoli this season. So yeah, I mean, there still are a decent contingent, I guess, of Lazio players in the Italy side, but yeah, it is a surprise because he has, like you say, scored a lot this season. I guess that you should, if you're going to give Mancini the benefit of the doubt, maybe you'd say he's picking on form. He picked the squad before the derby, and up until that point, Zaccagni hadn't scored a goal since January. He hasn't been brilliant in the last kind of month or two since January. But yeah, it's more that when you look at the players he has called up, you're kind of wondering what's going on there.
I think, and I agree with what he said after the match, he was a little bit nervous recently. And You know what? It's true. I think he gets a lot of fouls in a match. He tries very often the one against one. So we saw it yesterday as well against Zelensky. If you cannot stop it, you bring him down. And so if you get 3, 4, 5 fouls in a match, you get nervous. And probably this had a impact on his performance. And for example, yesterday in the first half, he shot twice on target, but the second one there was Milinkovic Savic on the right side, pretty much free, and it would have been probably better to pass the ball to Sergei rather than shot on target. So sometimes he has to cool down a little bit, but Alasdair, with Felipe Anderson on one side and Zaccagni on the other one, Lazio can be really dangerous because if they go one on one, they often win it, and they create so many dangers. So Zaccagni has to relax a little bit, focus on the match, because in the last couple of months, I thought he was on form but was too nervous and wasn't able to focus on the important occasion.
Yeah, and perhaps there's a bit more pressure on those guys now as well, because without Ciro, they know it's up to us to score the goals. I think when he was scoring most of his goals, it's when Ciro was in the team, and yes, it's the pressure is less because it's the team is obviously wanting you to score and so on, but they're not relying on it as much. Um, I think the really positive thing now is looking forward towards the end of the season. Obviously, there's a break now, but when you look at the fixture list between April and the start of June, when the season's over, there's only one midweek game that entire period, which means Sarri's going to get what he always wanted: a full week to prepare for pretty much every match. The only exception, annoyingly, being Milan away at San Siro. but but he's going to get a full week to prepare, and also it's going to give us a full week to have players recover fitness, recover from injuries, make sure they're okay. Which hopefully means, like you say, that front three of Zaccagni, Felipe Anderson, and Ciro has a chance of staying fit for the rest of the season. And we're going to rely on that because it is still the biggest concern. We know we can count on this defense now, but we need to get more goals out of this team still.
Were you surprised when Sarri took off Zaccagni yesterday? Because I thought Pedro is a little bit tired. He's not winning those battles on the right side.
Yeah.
Maybe we should take him off and put Cancellieri. Well, I was surprised to see Cancellieri coming in, to be honest. But it's even true that we don't have that many options on the bench. But were you surprised that Zaccagni came off?
Yeah, just because it's not what he normally does. I mean, usually it would be Pedro. But perhaps it's kind of like what you were saying before. Zaccagni was getting a bit wound up. He was being fouled a lot.
Yeah.
Are we going to take the risk of Zaccagni doing something stupid? There's obviously a lot of history between Zaccagni and the Roma fans and the Zaniolo stuff and all that last year. So he might be taking this fixture more personally than some of the other players on the pitch. That said, Pedro was then abused by Roma's coaching team, classy guys. So that they got a red card there too. And yeah, so I mean, there was a lot of that going around. I guess Sarri, it felt like a judgment call on where his mental state was rather than the way he was performing on the pitch to me.
I don't know where I read it on Twitter, but I think the Roma goalkeepers coach that has been sent off yesterday has already been sent off 3 times this year. Which, I mean,
yeah, it happens all the time. Referees coming to the sideline with a red card. Yeah.
I mean, this is embarrassing. It's incredible. But yeah,
I think I read as well though that because then we got a coach sent off as well.
Yeah.
And apparently he's already been sent off during Sarri's time at Chelsea, playing against Mourinho as well. So I think he's got some history too with this coaching team, which is quite funny.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. And talking about the substitution, what do you make about Cancellieri's performance? Because I thought in the last couple of matches, Cancellieri showed a lot of sign of improvement. And yesterday was tough. It was the derby. The match was still open. Roma was trying to find a goal to equalize the match, etc. Um, he got a silly yellow card, to be honest. But I thought we saw some very encouraging sign from Cancellieri. And do you think Cancellieri is coming in instead of Romero because Lazio didn't find a way to renew the contract of Romero, or do you think has nothing to do with that?
No, I think he's earned the opportunities he's had recently, and he's had a good attitude about it as well. I remember an interview a few weeks ago when he basically said, after we didn't see him for ages, he wasn't
Yeah.
being brought on, he wasn't getting starts, and then he was asked about it, and he said, I got my chances at the start of the season and I didn't take them, so it's fine to have to sit on the bench for a while until I earn it. And I think that's a great attitude for a young player to have. And obviously then he started making a bit more of an impact when he was coming off the bench. So that's been a bit of a below the radar battle going on this season, is who is the first cab off the rank in terms of the winger substitutes, because it was Cancellieri at the start, then it was Romero for ages, and now it seems to be Cancellieri again. And neither of those players obviously is exactly sorry, an ambulance going past, is exactly providing loads of goals or assists or anything from the bench. I think they've got one between them this season, but at the same time, I think we're seeing a good attitude and a better impact. Yeah, from Cancellieri certainly. He's got good attributes, doesn't he? I mean, he's quick. He seems to know how to kind of get himself into a game, and I feel like if Sarri works with him a bit, he could really turn into a good player. But he does struggle to turn that into goal contributions one way or another. That's something that was lacking this season. It was also lacking last season at Verona. I don't think he really produced an awful lot in terms of goals and assists. So that's definitely the next big step for him to make, is to start actually being more decisive, as well as showing a good attitude and making a good impression.
He created a good chance yesterday at the end of the match, which was encouraging. But yeah, he has to finish. It's even true that the question mark was he coming in to play number 9 or on the winger? And again, we saw him playing on the right side. So I don't know if the experiment is over or it's working only on the training ground. But that was another positive sign, I think. And the other thing that surprised me, Alasdair, was he took off Pedro afterwards and brought in Basic. So Lazio stopped playing 4-3-3 in the last couple of minutes, which was a wow moment for me. I mean, knowing that Sarri wants to play 4-3-3. The impression is that Sarri is living more the derby than I was expecting, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't very impressed, to be honest. Basic came on, got a yellow card, gave the ball away a couple of times. Yeah, I'm running out of patience with Basic a little bit, but he keeps playing him.
I thought he brought him in because he's big, and Roma was pretty much only dangerous with his long balls and cross. That's where Roma is really dangerous. I mean, if football was just corner kicks and free kicks, Roma would be the best team in the world. And we struggle there because his eye is small. We don't have great headers, so probably he brought in Basic to be a little bit more physical, I guess.
Got a little bit lucky with the Caselli on goal as well, offside, but
not by. I don't know you. I think I was dying. I think. I mean, I was just celebrating, and then Roma scored, and then
Yeah, I mean,
plus from the Curva Nord, I could understand nothing. Who scored, etc. I thought Abraham scored. But
well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the commentators didn't know either, so I wouldn't worry.
But we watching that, it was clearly offside. You have to wonder how the linesman didn't see it, because who was it? Smalling was even in front of the goalkeeper. So there was no Lazio player in front of him. So yeah,
Yeah, it was a bit of a heart in mouth moment. Um, yeah, I mean, look, I think it was a bit of a risky strategy in my mind, replacing an attacker with a midfielder at the end because you're almost
yeah,
inviting pressure a bit, and they're down to 10 men. And I just thought, look, the best way for Lazio to defend actually is to keep the ball, because you've got the extra man, and we're good at keeping the ball anyway. And yes, Roma will apply pressure, but if we're just clever about it, we know how to keep them at arm's length. And the last thing I wanted to see was the situation where we're dropping deep and they're firing high
yeah.
balls into the box. But yeah, that was what we got. But this defense has by now developed such a strong mentality that they know they can keep these clean sheets. They are able to stay calm under this kind of pressure because they've done it 16 times already. Um, so yeah, and it does give us a lot more calmness as fans now. I think. I mean, I can't speak for you in the stands yesterday. Probably calm isn't the right word, but
Nope.
um, I feel like there's a lot more faith in the Lazio defense now in these high pressure moments that they'll survive than under Inzaghi when we just waiting for the collapse to come.
Yeah, because I agree with you. I mean, Roma made a substitution. They took off Llorente, who just came in, and brought in the Sharawi. So they pretty much finished with four strikers and two central defenders. So in that time, if you could play the ball in their half, you would probably be able to move the ball without going to score, but just keeping the ball without giving the chance to recover it. And you could waste time till the end of the match, which Lazio didn't do. Which, again, I mean, big teams would have done that, right? In a situation like that. So that's the biggest question mark. But again, we talk about Cancellieri. I mean, finishing the derby with both Cancellieri and Romero in, I thought it was too risky. So he saw Pedro that was done and brought on Basic just because he thought he didn't have any other option. I mean, I would have tried Lazzari there, playing high like a winger, or maybe Pellegrini, just to keep the pressure there. So, yeah. Do you think with Cancelliere Romero would have been too much?
Possibly. I mean, Romero has form for coming on late and getting sent off. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, possibly. I just think we've so rarely changed formation that it was a slightly alarming thing to see because it's hardly ever happens. But no, I mean, look, it was a really good performance. It was rarely in doubt in retrospect, even if it was nerve wracking at the end. Um, Fully deserved against 10 men. They managed it well. Great win, Derby double. I mean, what more is there to say? It was. I think the one thing more to say really is that it was much needed after the result on Thursday and what was a really disappointing night in the Netherlands. And I think if you'd followed that up by losing the derby, the atmosphere going into this break would have been not great. So if you're gonna say we're throwing away the European competition because the derby's more important, you have to win the derby. You really do.
Do you
So
think?
just as well they did.
Do you think it's a coincidence? We lost in Netherlands, we won the derby. We lost against in Netherlands, and we won against the derby. We have to play always against a Netherlands team before the derby, or
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, perhaps that's the reason.
Al-
Um,
Alasdair, I know you were destroyed by the marathon, but how were you feeling when you found out that Provedel had high fever and could miss the game?
Well, because I ran bloody Rome marathon yesterday, I only found out about. I mean, by the way, marathons are horrendous, but it is the ultimate distraction on a derby day. You're not thinking about a derby if you're running. So I only saw it about 4 o'clock, 4:30 or something, and before I actually really saw this news, and by then, the team had pretty much been announced saying that he was playing. So it's a bit strange because we've seen in the last few days both Providel being chosen ahead of Maximiano despite having a fever, and Providel starting ahead of Maximiano in the Conference League, despite Maximiano previously being the first choice in the cups. So Maximiano is clearly not in favour at the moment, one way or another.
No, I was really scared because, as a goalkeeper and you've been dropped again, how much confidence do you have coming in this big match? So, was surprised to see Providel starting. By the way, Providel is not going to the national team, even if he's been called because he still have fever. So it's strange because he had a great performance yesterday. Nothing huge. He made two couple good save even on the goal disallowed by Roma. He had a terrific save before on the first shot. So, but yeah, I was really concerned. If Maximiliano had started the derby yesterday, I don't know if Lazio would have won it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, it's a lot of money spent on a guy who's not playing that much.
Yeah.
What do you think about Iglitare? I mean, this kind of passive aggressive war of words between Tare and Sarri seems to keep going, and now you've got Tare coming out and saying yesterday, well, actually, we do have a squad that can fight in several competitions. After Sarri's obviously suggested that we don't. So the two of them clearly have a difference of opinion about how strong the squad is and how well equipped it is to go through a full
But
season.
Alistair, this time I think the problem is different. I mean, I can agree Lazio hasn't got the team to fight for the Champions League and for the Serie A title. But if you compete in the conference, that it's a lower level, I think the squad is good enough. I mean, I don't believe you need a Vice Ciremobile or a good Vice Ciremobile to beat AZ Alkmaar. We were 1-0 ahead and we simply stopped playing. And I don't think it's a problem of not enough depth. That's simply the team focus on the match, on Sunday's match instead of Thursday match. And you could see it
Yeah,
because it's not. I mean, I can understand. Again, Champions League, we don't have the squad to make it. Europe League, not sure. It depends. Conference League, we definitely had a better squad, and we should have gone through. So it's not depth problem. And the words that Sari said after Saturday's game against Bologna, saying that he had to pick and choose between the derby and the Conference League, that was a clear message, right? So. Uh, was disappointing, honestly, to see Lazio playing so badly Thursday because I thought we could have won. We could have won easily.
very very lucky to only lose 2-1 in the.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
was shocking after Lazio scored. They were so bad.
they hit the post twice. Provedel make a couple of good save. On another one, I don't remember if Vecino saved it on the line. I mean, we stopped playing, and this at Z is an average team at best. So I am on target on this thing. Said this, obviously, as you were mentioning before, now we have pretty much one game per week, and this is where Sarri is um best at, right? Having 5 days to prepare a match is where he's good. But before finishing, well, no, you have something to say. Go on.
I was just going to say, I mean, you're right, but Sarri has to grow up and deal with that because that is football now. I know he keeps complaining about modern football and the fact that the fixture schedule is like it is, but I'm sorry, Maurizio, if you want to be at the top level, that is what the sport looks like, and it has done for quite a long time now. You know, the idea of having a week to train for every game is just, it doesn't exist at that level, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, look at FIFA's recent announcements last week about what they're planning on doing with the crazy new World Cup and the Club World Cup and all this crap. I mean, that's only going to increase. UEFA, I'm sure, will get on board with that. There's now a new Super Cup, including
Yeah,
4 teams in Saudi Arabia. I mean,
in January.
it's absolutely crazy the amount of stuff that's being asked of players. And he's well within his rights to have complaints about that, as I do, as a lot of fans do. But you do have to deal with that in the here and now. And I think that actually, yeah, that a lot. I think you're absolutely right in what you say. There, we're not talking about a team competing in the Champions League here. We're talking about having a team, a rotated team, capable of competing in the Conference League, which is a lot lower level. I disagree about AZ. I thought they're actually a pretty good team. I was quite impressed with them over the two legs, but a lot better than Cluj for example. But still, it is a team you're playing against where you feel we only rotated 4 players into that side on Thursday. It wasn't that different from a full strength Lazio team. And if you're bringing in the likes of Pellegrini, Vecino, Cancellieri, you that shouldn't be that big a drop off in performance. It really shouldn't. So it's really disappointing. I think the attitude towards the European competitions this season has been really, really frustrating.
Yeah. Alistair, can I ask you this question? Because as you were mentioning, Lazio rotate 4 players Thursday, while Roma played all the starters pretty much. And Napoli pretty much did the same. Do you think Lazio is doing it wrong to rotate in Europe? Or do you think that Roma, Napoli, etc., will pay the price at the end of the season with players tired and not able to play anymore?
I don't know. I mean, I think minor rotation is okay. You can change play team losing its identity, losing its momentum. I think there are enough players in this Lazio team who chop and change anyway. Vecino or Cataldi, Casali or Gilo or Patrick, Lazzari or Marisic, Pellegrini or Husai. If you're changing these kind of players, they're all getting a decent amount of game time. Well, okay, not Pellegrini, but the rest are all getting enough game time over the season that it's not like they're strangers to this team or its style or whatever. You can still expect them to come in and beat middling teams. So I don't think it's the squad. I think I'm kind of more on Sarri's side here. I think that when it comes to the Conference League, we do have a good enough squad to compete in 2 competitions, but you need to care about it. You need to have the right attitude towards it, and I just don't think they have. And the fans haven't got on board this season. They don't really care, so that results in another forgettable year, which then probably means next year it'll be the same, unless we get in the Champions League, which hopefully will actually get some people to the stadium.
Yeah. Alistair, before I wrap it up, and I'm not ready to talk about this, but I have to. I mean, what a terrific performance from Isai. What happened? I mean, last year was terrible, dreadful. This year, he's probably the best fullback we have. I mean, even Sarri mentioned and said he's one of the best.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've often said that we shouldn't be too quick to judge players after one season. I think with Husai, you can be quicker because he's already played under Sarri for ages. He's already played in Serie A for so long that we expected him to adapt quicker. And last season he was quite poor. But yeah, I mean, credit to the guy. He has turned it around. He's found some really good form this season. So fantastic. And I think he's been really contributing in an attacking sense as well. To begin with, he was very impressive defensively, but actually recently I think he's done well on the other side of his game too. So Pellegrini is going to find it hard to get a game, although I would like to see more of him. It was quite funny seeing after the game all the pushing and shoving, and Pellegrini's right in the middle of that, and he's only just going to join, but there he is. Stefan Radu, we expect it from him, so
we're gonna miss Stefan Radu.
Epic Radu. He knows this is his last derby, and he's never going to get a game, but still he manages to take some of the attention. So
yeah, I wanted to finish with Pellegrini because, as you mentioned, it was funny. I got back home and saw the highlights, and Pellegrini was saying to the Roma fans, to the Roma player, "Go away, it's finished," and was the first one to celebrate with Zaccagni on close to the Curva Nord. I mean, He said it. He's a Lazio fan, and well, we didn't mention Pellegrini because we didn't talk about that Z match. I thought he had finally started, and I thought he had a good game.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, what was it, 3 months that he didn't play? He can be useful, and being a Lazio fan definitely could help him. I'm not convinced Lazio will pay the buyout clause because it's 30 million euros. I don't see it happening anyway. But it's good to have a player like that, right?
Yeah, he could be useful the tail end of the season. He looked good going forward, especially I thought. And obviously he offers something we otherwise don't have, which is a left-footed player to play at left back, which is something Sarri wanted. And he cares, yeah. He really cares. He's not here to just fill in the numbers. For him, this is a big opportunity. So yeah, it was nice to finally see him on the team sheet, even though it was kind of evidence of the fact that Sarri just doesn't care. Finally gives Pellegrini a game, but in the conference.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit a longer podcast. A listener will excuse us, but do you think it's a coincidence? Alice, don't die on the pod, please. Even though the share will go massively up. Do you think it's a coincidence we won 2 derby out of 2 with Romagnoli, Lazio fan, Cataldi, Lazio fan, Pellegrini on the bench, Lazio fan, etc.? Or doesn't count?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice that there's so many represented now. I mean, that's not always been the case. I mean, it's very rarely been the case, really, to have a team with so many Lazio in it. And you know, I'm not sure. I think it can go both ways because, you know, sometimes it can get to these players a bit too much. It can be a bit too heated, a bit too, you know, emotional, I guess, about the game. But in this case, no. In this case, it was the opposite. Romagnoli was really assured, very good performance. And yeah, and it means more, I think, because you see the celebrations afterwards and you've got all those guys you mentioned. Then you've got Stefan Radu in there, you've got Ciro in there, and it's a real kind of group who are oozing Lazialità, and that's great to see.
Yeah, it was good to see Ciro on the bench, even if he wasn't able to play. But I think his leadership is important even there. So, I mean, that's another sign, right? He could have easily say in the stand or at home, etc. Instead, he wanted to be there. And this gives you the feeling of the group, the Lazio group. So it was good again. And this sent you a sign. But still, it's a long way to go. Yes, we won 2 derby, which is absolutely terrific. But the season is long. And now we have to try to finish in the top 4, Alasdair.
Yes, definitely the objective and very achievable objective at this stage. So, yeah, a little international break and then we'll be back for more.
Definitely. And you have time to recover from the marathon. I mean, in 2 weeks' time, you should be able to do it, right?
I hope so. I mean, literally everything in my body hurts. So,
well, thanks again, guys, for listening. I'm sorry we've been a little bit long, but I think you will enjoy this podcast. And as usual, rate and review our podcast. And if you want to support us, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Bye.
Cheers.